Okay. Um, so yeah, good afternoon, evenings, and again, welcome and thank you for joining. And as usual, we'll start with a short mindful breathing exercise to quiet our mind, to bring our mind in moment and present. Okay. So just make yourself comfortable and relaxed. And feel the weight of your body on cushion or chair. And as you breathe in and out, normally, naturally, try to keep your attention to the breath. Watching it mindfully. And as you breathe in, being aware you are breathing in. As you breathe out, watching and being aware you are breathing out. So simply just watching and being mindful of inhaling and exhaling. Then we can try to generate good intentions for being here. As long as we cannot find contentment in our life or mind, as long as we're discontent, dissatisfied with things, we can never find true inner peace, joy, satisfactions. No matter how much we have, no matter what we have, we will always miss something. We will always feel we will be more happy only if we could get that what we don't have. Therefore, always feel some empty, something missing. And that sense of empty, dissatisfied, something missing cannot be filled by external objects. It can only be filled with our content and satisfied mind. And in order to be able to develop such content and happy mind, regardless of our situation, what we have, what we do not have, how much we have, how much we do not have, regardless of that, but being okay, happy, satisfied, content. To be that, then we need to have less craving, desire, attachments. And in order to have less desire, craving, and attachments, we need to cultivate the wisdom, understanding how all these external material things, objects, have no real essence, no true essence, no true meaning. So they all are fleeting, ever-changing, transitory, impermanent nature. And to be able to cultivate that kind of wisdom, we need to reflect, contemplate, and meditate on that subject matter. Not just one time, but again and again, until we develop that wisdom of awareness of that. And to be able to enter and to be able to contemplate and meditate, we need to be reminded through study, learning, hearing, so forth. And that's why we are here. May us coming here together, giving our precious time. Energy, resource, may all this become cause and condition to cultivate such wisdom, awareness. So we can reduce and overcome all such craving, desire, attachments, which lead us to be unhappy, dissatisfied mind. May it be cause and condition to cultivate and fully develop our innate goodness in ourselves through loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. And may we always be help and benefit to others. At least may we never hurt and harm others intentionally. May this become cause and condition to actualize our highest potential, fully awakened state. So we can be not only benefit, but greatest benefit. And not just for few, but towards all sentient beings, all living beings. Okay. You want to?
Oh, am I being Unze?
Yeah, you can be Unze today.
All right. Well, do the opening prayers. First, praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. 3 times in English. To the founder, the endowed, and the destroyer, the one beyond, the Lord destroyer, the
Completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect knowledge and
contact.
the God that Lord, the Lord, supreme God, the meanest retain. Teacher, it beings, so the completely, fully awakened one.
The endowed, and the destroyer,
The glorious Son, the subduer from his pain. I prostrate my followings and your refuge.
to the founder, the endowed, and the destroyer, the one beyond, the
The destroyer,
the
the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and
the contact. To the God of the world,
to the green God of the human beings to be tamed. Eternal God, sacred beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed and the destroyer, the glorious Son, the subduer from the God of plan. I prostrate my offerings and open refuge.
To the founder, the endowed, and the destroyer,
The one beyond, the destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct. To God of the world, supreme God of human beings, retain. Eternal God, secret beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed and the destroyer, the glorious Son of God, the subduer of the shadow of flame. Prostrate my offerings and offer refuge.
We'll do the short mandala offering once in English. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers, adorned with for the confidence of silence. May all the beings this purified. We'll do refuge in bodhicitta. Once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By an air I breathe through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Maybe we are having some problems in here. No, this is what yes, I don't know what happened. Okay. And can you hear? Okay. So as I mentioned at the motivations, the subject of the topic of subject of this sutta that we're discussing is on impermanent. The nature of impermanent in general, and especially within the nature of impermanent, especially here, the Buddha talked about impermanent nature of the life. And then we went to the way Buddha explained, how most wealthy persons as a king and most even they cannot escape the death. They have to experience that. Even the most powerful persons in the world, they also have to face the death. No matter how status your status is, everyone has to face the death. It's only a matter of time, and we all have to face that. So you go through that, and not only all the human beings, also all other living beings. There are many unseen living or sentient beings, and they also have to face. And then within the unseen living beings, there are some who experience more suffering than we human beings, and there are some who experience more suffering than us, and then others who experience less suffering than us. And so, in the Buddhist teachings, they describe about 6 different type of beings, and within that, then there is description of God realms as well. And within the God realms, there are many God realms, and we are talking about these gods are unenlightened beings like ourselves, sentient beings, but who have less suffering than us, but who are not free from the suffering, but there is less suffering than us in terms of immediate sufferings. And within the God realms, there is descriptions of desired God realm, form God realms, formless God realms. And within the desired God realm, there is 6 different types of desired God realms, which Buddha explained. Also, all of them also have to experience of the death, and they cannot also escape from the death. And then he described about 17 different types of form God realms. 17 different types of form God realms. Even those God realms, also they will also have to experience the death, and also they cannot escape the death. Okay, I think that's where we kind of stopped last. We finished up to that. Generally, that you find description of sufferings, sometimes in the 3 categories: the suffering of pain, suffering of change, and suffering of all pervasives. And within our human realms, we experience all of them. Okay, suffering of pain is when we have, headache, or when we have illness, or different things. That is suffering of pain. And suffering of change is, sometimes we experience pleasant feeling, but then that transforms into a pain later, that turns into the suffering later. Because by nature, it's not real, true happiness. And so therefore, it changes into a suffering later, And suffering of all pervasive is, that the very nature that we are the prisoner or slave of our own affective emotions. That is suffering of all pervasives. That is suffering when you don't have total control. When you don't have total control of your life, you don't have total control of your thoughts, feelings, mind. I don't want to be angry, but sometimes I cannot stop. I don't want to have too much desire, but sometimes we cannot stop. We don't want to have jealousy, but sometimes jealousy just arises. We don't want to be so, self-important, but sometimes that kind of pride arises. Something we don't want, but sometimes we cannot control. Those emotions just arises and take over us, and ignorance, all different negative emotions. So our lives controlled by our mind, and our mind being controlled by those afflictive emotions. And that itself, that you have that we are the prisoner of our own afflictive emotions, slave of that, being slave of something, another power, being prisoner of another, that itself is suffering. That's what I'm saying, And that kind of suffering is all pervasive, because like in the desired God land, they don't have suffering of pain like we have, But, at the end of their life, then, they have certain signs when they are dying, and then that give them some kind of mental anguish and pain, So they do have a little bit of that at the very end of their life, when their life comes to the end, And then when you go to the form realms, they don't even have that kind of suffering or pain, But still, they have the suffering all pervasive, because they are still not free from their delusions. Still, they are not free from their delusion. They are still under the control of the delusions. And same with the formless God lands. Formless God lands is that they do not have any physical form. That's why it's called formless God land. Is just consciousness, mind, but no physical forms. They don't have physical form. And within that, formless God realm, even then, they don't have suffering of pain, they don't have suffering of change, but they have suffering of all pervasives because their life is still under the control of the karma and the delusions. They are still slaves. They are still not free from their delusions. They are still prisoner of the delusion. They are still slave of the delusion, their own delusion like ourselves. And so therefore they are also not free from the samsara and free from the sufferings. Okay. So even though formless God, also, even though they do not have as so much suffering as us, but they have suffering of all pervasives. And they also have to face the death. They also cannot escape from the death. So that is like in the page number number 2, page number 2, 1.9. That's where we are. Here Buddha said, monks, those God of the formless realms, And within the formless, there are 4 types of formless God realms. And so one of those God belong to the sphere of infinite space, So they don't have physical form, but their conscious, their mind, the object of their meditation concentration is just like a space, like a space, that is why infinite space. And then the second one, those belong to the sphere of infinite consciousness. Even if you talk about space, it is still some kind of, growth. So then next one is even more subtle than that in their concentrations. The object of concentration is just the consciousness, not even the space. And the third one, those belonging to the sphere of nothingness. And in the third one, in the mental concentration, the object mental concentration, there are no objects of the meditation. So that is why it's nothingness. In the first one is like space. Second one is the consciousness. In the third ones, and each of them, their concentrations is much more subtle than the previous ones, and also, so that is what it's called, sphere of nothingness. And those belong to the sphere of neither perception nor non-perceptions, neither gross perception nor, non-perception, because there is some perception, because there is mind. So there is a mind, but that is not a gross mind, or gross perceptions, nor without any perception. So it's very subtle perceptions. Sometimes it is called sise, that's mostly they use, peak of the samsara. And within the samsara beings, within the 6 rank of samsara beings, they are the peak, very top. They are the very top. But still they are unenlightened, still they are under the delusion. And so therefore, again, they will also experience the death. They cannot escape the death. And when they die and when they lose their material concentrations, then again they can be born in any other places, depending on their mental state, So those are even for them. So even all those 4 type of formless God, even for them, life concludes with death. Even they cannot escape the death. Even they have to experience the death. Even though they are on the peak and top in the samsara, they are the top and the peak within all the samsaric beings. Even they cannot escape the death. Even they too have to experience the death. Has its limits in death. They cannot go forever like that. There's a limit. Their life have to come to the end due to the death. They can only go up to certain times. For there is nothing that is born that will not die. And so, anyone who is born have to die. No one is exceptions. Whether you are bottom of the samsara or whether you are peak of the samsara, as long as you are born, you have to face the death. No one can escape that. Even within the human beings, whether you're the most rich or whether you are most poor, both have to face the death. Whether you are the most powerful or whether you are the least powerful, you both have to face the death. Whether you are most educated or whether you are least educated, both of them have to face the death. Whether you are most spiritual or whether you are least spiritual, everyone has to face the death. As long as you are born, you cannot escape it. You have to, So same here. For there is nothing that is born that will not die. And these are the three worlds. So three worlds, the worlds or realm of the desire realms or desire world, form world or form realms, and formless world or formless realms. Okay, so these are the three worlds. Okay, three worlds or three realms: desire realms, form realms, and formless realms of the world. And within the desire realms, then we spoke about desire God realm, desire human part of those desire realms, animals, and others. So next ones, then monks, those arhat. So arhat are those who are on the path, who have overcome all the afflictive emotions. Okay, arhat, literal translation is foe destroyer. The foe here is the enemy, internal enemy. Someone who have destroyed the internal enemy. And what is that internal enemy? Is those afflictive emotions, those delusions, the defilements, okay? Such as anger, attachments, ignorance, jealousy, pride, and so forth. There are 6 root delusions, 21 secondary delusions. So someone who have overcome or destroy all those afflictive emotions through their practice, meditations, is called arhat. Someone who have achieved total liberation or nirvana. Someone who have achieved total liberation, nirvana, by overcoming all those afflictive emotions. Okay, those arhat, whose negative influence have been exhausted. So whose negative influence by their negative emotions or afflictive emotions has been exhausted or destroyed. There's no more of those athletic emotions. The arhat have no more athletic emotions. They have completely eliminated them. So, who have fulfilled their duty, who have achieved their personal highest level of personal liberations. Okay, someone who have achieved their personal liberations, who have fulfilled their duty, someone who wish they wanted to achieve total liberation, personal total liberation or salvations or freedom from the samsara and the sufferings. And they have been able to do that. They have been able to free themselves completely from all the suffering, completely from the samsara by destroying the root of all those, root of samsara and the suffering, the karma, contaminated karma and the delusions. So therefore, they have, who have fulfilled their duty, who have fulfilled their, who have done what is to be done, So those, what they wanted to do when they entered their spiritual path, when they are on the path, what they wanted to do is they wanted to, overcome and get rid of all the suffering and the cause of suffering. That's why they are on the path. Those arhat who are on the path. The reason why they are on the path is to get rid of all the sufferings and the cause of the sufferings, because they saw suffering is unbearable, suffering is unwanted, suffering is something unwanted, unbearable. And so in order to overcome all the suffering, not temporarily, but permanently, forever, therefore that is why they follow the path. For example, in terms of the Buddha's teaching, Four Noble Truth, because you recognize suffering, life is full of sufferings, acknowledging and understanding that, then where does that suffering come from? Analyzing that, and the cessation, the first suffering of truth, truth of suffering, and then the truth of origin, and that suffering comes from our own actions and delusions. And so if you do not want the suffering, then you have to overcome the cause of that suffering, the karma and the delusions. How can we do that? By actualizing the path within ourselves. The path within ourselves. The wisdom, the path within ourselves. By doing that, we can achieve the cessation, total freedom from all the suffering permanently. And therefore, that is why, in order to overcome that suffering, that is where they enter the path and actualize path. And so that is what they wanted to do. So therefore, they have been, who have done what is to done. The reason them to enter the path is to take care of that, and they are able to take care of that. Who have laid aside their burdens, and that burden that we have been carrying is our samsaric birth. Samsaric birth. Okay? Samsaric birth. As long as we have samsaric birth, then we cannot escape suffering. Until we stop samsaric birth, as long as samsaric birth, we cannot escape the sufferings. suffering come with that samsaric birth. Is part of that. And so therefore, those who are in samsara, they have been carrying this burden all the time. When you end that, then you have laid aside that burden. Now you don't have to have any samsaric birth anymore. Now you are free from samsaric birth. And when you are free from samsaric birth, then you are free from the burdens of that samsaric birth that come with sufferings. So therefore, let's say who have reached their own goals, okay, individual liberation, individual nirvana, individual total lasting, everlasting happiness. Those for whom the petals of existence have been exhausted, So now, they don't have to exist in samsara. Those who have able to destroy the root of all the samsara or the cyclic existence, whose mind have been completely liberated, and whose mind has been completely liberated because they are totally free from all the negative afflictive emotions, There's no more attachment, anger, ignorance, and so forth. Therefore, there's no dissatisfied, unhappy mind. Therefore, their mind has been completely liberated, completely in peace, completely in bliss. Their mind is not kind of fluctuating like our mind up and down by changes in conditions, And that is completely liberated by proper highest knowledge, through the highest knowledge of wisdom, realizing the emptiness. By the wisdom, realizing the emptiness. And that wisdom, realizing emptiness, that has been supported by the practice of karma abiding and moral discipline. How they were able to get rid of all the delusions, which are the cause of the samsara and the suffering, is through these three higher trainings. In the higher training in material, moral discipline, and material concentration on karma abiding, and the wisdom. The wisdom realizing the emptiness. That's the highest knowledge, by that they were able to do that. So if we also want to do, then we have to cultivate those qualities. Those who have obtained excellent perfections, consistence of complete mastery of thought, so, they are master of their own thoughts. At the moment, our thought is master of us. Do you get it? We are the slave of them. And the thoughts, our mind is the master of ourselves. And the delusions are the master of that mind, that thought. But those arhat, through training in their mind, through practice meditations, and through the practice of those three high trainings, they have overcome those afflictive emotions and they have gained total control over their mind. Now they have total control over their mind. Unlike we, who have no control over our mind, but they have completely become in control over their mind, and therefore they are the master of their thoughts, master of their own mind, instead of the other way around. Even that is the case, even though you can see, even though they are free from the samsara, they are free from all the sufferings, they have overcome all the karma, all the delusions, they have perfected their mind and become a master of their own mind. Even for them, their pleasing body are subject to being given up. Even they have to face the death. Even they are not free from the death. So therefore, if we look, we can hear about stories of Shariputra, Moggallana, Kashyapa, Ananda, all those great arhats, all 16 arhats, 500 arhats, 2,500 arhats. There's a description, many of them in Prajnapada Sutras. All of them now just a history. We can learn about them. We can hear about, study about them, when they were, how they were, what they did when they, but they are no more in that form anymore. Why? Because they all died. They all died. They all faced the death. So even those arhat, if the arhat has to face death, we are no exceptions. We are no exceptions. So again, as I mentioned, bringing back through that kind of contemplation, meditations, bringing back to closer to ourselves. Not just, the arhat are dying, or they have to die. Do you get it? If they die, of course I will die. If even such enlightened beings, such as arhat, even if they have to face death, who am I not to face the death? For sure, I will also die. Do you get it? That is the point, that when we meditate, we have to bring that back to ourselves. That is the whole purpose of meditation. That is not like something like looking down there, he's having this problem, but I will not have that problem. If we contemplate in that way, then it doesn't have strong impact and transformation in your mind. But the way is, even those such a highly realized, enlightened beings, if they have to face death, of course I will have to face death. Of course I will experience that. Of course I'm no exceptions. Of course, I will not be able to escape the death. And through that, bringing closer to ourselves and being aware that we will die and we are no exception from that. That's the very nature of it, of the life. Once we are born, as it mentioned, Buddha mentioned before, once you are born, you can escape it. And then next, monks, those Pratyeka Buddhas. So sometimes in English we totally realizes, So there are two kinds of arhats. Hidden arhat and solitary realizer arhat. And there are two different paths. So that is Pratyeka Buddha or solitary realizers. Living alone like rhinoceros. And within those who are on this path, Pratyeka Buddha or solitary realizers path, there are two types, One who's like rhinoceros, means, who doesn't live in a crowd or group by themselves, who just meditate and on the path by themselves. That's what rhinoceros, they don't go in group, they go single, one by one. So there are some type of those who have that one type, and then other type who live in crowds, who are in communities, who have a community and who study and practice with the communities. There's so two types, and either of them, who master themselves alone, who master their mind themselves alone, who pacify themselves alone, who pacify their afflictive emotions, delusions, obscuration by themselves, and who enter parinirvana or beyond the sorrow, the state of liberations or the state beyond the sorrow, nirvana, themselves alone, Even for them, their pleasant bodies are subject to being given up. Even they have to face the death. Even they are not free from the death. Even they cannot escape the death. That being the case, again, bringing back to ourselves. Who am I, to not to face the death? I'm no exceptions. I will also have to face the death. I will also have to experience the death. So again, practical Buddhas, those who are on that path, it is mentioned at the very beginning of their path, they rely on Sangha, teachers, and all of that, to get the instructions, to get the teachings, instructions, showing path from the like teachers, and within the community. But at the end, before they achieve their realizations, before they achieve their realization, arhat, then they have got enough informations, enough instructions, have studied enough, learned enough, they have enough experience, and then they go by themselves and alone by themselves, and they make the final climb in their spiritual path. You get it? It's like, someone helped them from Mount Everest base camp to 4th camp, 3rd camp, 2nd camp, 1st camp, and then the final push to the summit, they do by themselves without having to rely on others. Okay? On others, the higher arhat, even their final summit, they will go with the shepherd guide, They will have to go with the shepherd guide to the final summit. They cannot do by themselves, They will have to take someone's help, the help of other Sangha members, communities, or teachers, and that they do the final summit with someone's support. Whereas Pratika Buddha, especially those who are like the rhinoceros, then they do the final push by themselves without and because of, so that's the way it is. So in terms of spiritual practice, the practice of solitary realizer or Pratika Buddha is a little bit more profound and more supreme than the healers. And of course, the practice of bodhisattvas is more profound and more superior than the solitary realizers. So again, and for the next, is saying those who are on both sort of path, okay, those who are on both sort of path, And by following the Bodhisattva path, who are able to achieve their highest goal, a fully awakened, a fully enlightened state. So that's what it's saying. Okay, even they have to face death. So that's what it's saying. Monks, those Tathagatas. So Tathagatas, meaning to the Buddhas, and there are different meanings of Tathagatas, one meaning of Tathagatas is, following the path, what they teach. Whatever they teach, they follow that path, walking the talk, or in another way of explaining Tathagata is, or another way of understanding the meaning of Tathagata is they completely, directly realize the nature of, ultimate nature of things as it is. Those who have understood the ultimate nature of things as it is, so those are the Tathagatas who is able to perceive, both reality, ultimate reality, conventional reality, as it is simultaneously at the same time. So those are the Tathagatas. And also, of course, Tathagatas are also arhat because they are also free from all the defilement, all the delusions. And complete and perfect Buddhas, and because Buddhas means, fully awakened, or someone who have overcome all the obscurations and who have cultivated all the positive qualities or virtuous qualities. That's what is Buddhas, So who have completed and perfected, who have not only overcome the obscuration of defilement, but also who have overcome the subtle obscurations, the obscuration of omniscience. And that is the imprint left by the delusions. And the imprint left by the delusion is that give appearance of dualistic views. Since they don't have delusion, for arhat, for example, arhat, since they don't have delusion, there's no arising of any delusion, such as anger, attachment, ignorance, no matter what condition they encounter or face. Okay? But since they have not overcome that subtle obscurations, still there's appearance of dualistic views, dualistic things appearing. They don't have grasping, but there is the appearance. Okay? There's appearance of objects as existing from its own side, but they don't have grasping of the object to exist from its own side. So there's no more grasping, but their appearance. And the reason why their appearance is because they have not abandoned or eliminated that subtle obscuration, the imprint of that delusions. But Buddha is someone who has overcome all, even that obscurations, and someone who is able to, as I mentioned before, able to see the true reality, ultimate conventional reality, directly, simultaneously at the same time, with the same mind, moment of minds, and who have actualized highest level of love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, wisdom, all the positive, who have actualized highest level of all the positive inner qualities or realization, spiritual realization, someone who has actualized all of them, who have achieved their highest potentials, someone who have achieved the more skillful means spontaneously. So, and mighty one with 10 powers, So there are 10 kind of what you call 10 spiritual realizations of the Buddhas. that is not possessed by arhat and others, I don't know whether I need to go each of them or not. Yeah, maybe the mighty with 10 powers, So the 10 power, the power of knowing the consequences of all karmic actions of sentient beings, So the Buddha has the power to understand, each sentient being's karmic imprint. And when you understand each sentient karmic, then you can be able to help according to that, so able to help and benefit according to needs of others, according to their level of karma, according to their level of their mental predisposition and so forth. And, the power of knowing the previous cause for all karmic result in details, If you know, when sentient beings experiencing whatever they're experiencing, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, to be able to see what are the cause that produce that experience. Detail, when, where, what exactly actions the karma that was created in the past, and to be able to relate that, and then with the immediate cause and condition. When you do that, then again, you are able to help others. And then in the stories, Buddha's story, there are many, a Sutra, a collection of that about law of cause. When Buddha is with his disciples, followers, move from one place to another places, sometimes they experience, sometimes they see different on the way, or different sentient beings or different events happening, and they ask Buddha why it's happening, why, and then Buddha recollect why, all the cause and everything, because he's able to see all the detail of previous cause and condition exactly in his very detail, And there is a story of, because some people who heard that, they didn't believe Buddha's, of his explanation of all these details. And Buddha told, they can, they can collect ashes from different trees and different plants and they mix everything they brought. And Buddha was able to explain each of those different ashes, these ashes coming from that particular tree or that particular plant, and so on. So that is how he is able to. And so then it clearly their doubt, some of them who had doubt whether he was just lying, whether he was really telling true or lie. How is he able to? How can you believe that everything he says about that? And that is what they did, to test him, his ability. And that is when, in that case, it's mentioned that Buddha was able to, point out each of them very detailed, how that ash from that particular plant, that particular, so that was one. Yeah. The power of knowing various wishes of all living beings, So, and that is again if you want to help and benefit others, it's very important to understand what their wish are. If we don't understand their wish, then we force our wish on them. Do you get it? Not based on what they want or what they think beneficial, or I think is beneficial for you. What I think is beneficial. And it doesn't work that very well to help someone like that. Sometimes, and a lot of time, because we cannot read them what their mind wishes are, So again, the power of knowing various predisposition of all sentient beings, so then that you can guide and lead them according to their predispositions, their different inclinations. because not everyone has same predisposition, not everyone has same inclinations. Therefore, in Buddhism, you find many different paths, because Buddha taught different paths according to the different predisposition and inclination of different sentient beings. That's why there is the path of towards both sort of a path. There's path for arhat. Within the arhat, the path of healer, the path of solitary realizers, they all are taught by the Buddha himself, because different sentient beings have different inclinations, different predispositions. And sometimes the way I understand, or my interpretations or my understanding, is the Buddha, and I also mentioned in the past, Buddha is more concerned on what is most beneficial to individuals than being so obsessed with what is right and wrong. Do you get it? At the moment, what we get is we are become obsessed with right and wrong, become righteous, right and wrong. You might be right, but if it's not helping that person, benefiting that, what is the point of it? If your intention to help someone, benefit someone, and Buddha was more on that, what's more beneficial for that person in that moment, at that time. Sometimes if you say the truth and right thing, maybe it will make worse for that person. Instead of being helpful, it can be very harmful for that person. So it's always finding the most skillful means, most skillful way, what is required, what is needed of that person in that time, in that individual situation, and so forth. And so, in order to be able to do that, then of course we need to have such, the power of knowing the various predispositions of all living beings, the power of knowing the scope of all beings, the power of knowing spiritual path of all beings, the power of knowing the different meditations appropriate for the liberation of each sentient being, the power of knowing the previous life of all beings, the power of knowing the body living process in the death and the rebirth of all living beings, the power of knowing which obstacle has been abandoned by each living being. So those are the 10 kind of powers that is described. And because of those powers, the Buddha is able to be so much benefit to other sentient beings, knowing exactly what their needs are, their inclination are, what their interests are, and how to help, how to benefit exactly in that, according to that, and so forth. So that is why. So my deal with the 10 powers, worthy of admirations, and of course, Buddha is worthy of admirations by everyone, even those who doesn't follow his philosophy, all over the world, even people who doesn't follow his philosophy or spiritual path, they admire Buddhas for being, the messenger of true love, compassion, non-violence, and so forth. Even people who doesn't follow any spiritual path, they have very high regard to the Buddhas because of that. They might not be interested in any religion, they might not be interested in any spiritual path, but they have very high admirations for Buddhas. for the qualities that he possesses, you know. Roaring, a true lion's roar, you know. So, you know, fearless, you know, fearless. And one becomes fearless when you don't have any ego, when you don't have any self-grasping thoughts, you know, as it is mentioned in also Sutra, similarly, you know, when you are free from all the self-grasping and, you know, selfish attitude, egoistic mind, then you become fearless. At the moment, we are fear because of our ego, self-grasping. Or if I say, what will people think of me? How would he or she act? Or maybe he or she might not like me. Or he or she might think negative about me. All there's a lot of fear come from because of that. You know, so then when you are no more of that, you know, then it's like lions roar without any fear. And confident in four competences, you know. I think this might be the four fearless, you know. Again, that is the problem I'm having with this, because I couldn't find the Tibetan versions of this, and I've been trying, but I couldn't find. And this translation is very different from the word the translator choose is quite different from normally what we choose also. So here it says four competent, but it might be the four, because the description of that seems a little bit more like that. The four fearlessness also is inner quality of the Buddha, you know. Confidence in a certain Dharma, confidence in all their teachings, confidence in apprehending the path to Nirvana, and confidence in their effort to notice the exhausting negative influence. So in those four fearless, then Buddha is fearless in proclaiming that he is free from all the afflicting emotions or all the obscurations. Fearless in that, you know. Fearless in proclaiming that, you know, that he has actualized all his positive qualities, inner positive qualities, you know. And fearless in teaching the sentient beings, you know, that the delusions are the root of all this suffering and samsara. And fearless in explaining, you know, how the path, such as 37 path harmonious with the body, are the path to nirvana or to enlightenment. So, so even someone like Buddha, who's free from all the obscuration, who actualize all the positive qualities, who have those 10 powers, for fearless and so forth, even their body, strong-limbed and firm like Narayana, even for them, their pleasing bodies are subject to being given up. You know, I don't know Narayana, firm like Narayana. So that part I didn't know what's that one. But basically, you know, even though so strong, even though physically strong, mentally, of course, you know, still even the Buddhas, they also had to face the death. We talk about Buddha Shakyamuni, we can only talk about him. Now he's just a historic Buddha. He's no more in that aspect, in that body anymore. He had to give up that body. He had to let that body. He had to face the death. So even Buddha, someone that, from Buddhist point of view, the highest level of realization that you can get. There's nothing more enlightened than you can become. Even that, as long as you are born in such body, then you have to face the death. If that is the case for the Buddha, who are we not to expect that? Who am I not to expect that? Who am I, who to think it might not come to me, or it might not happen to me? That would be too arrogant. Therefore, again, coming back to yourself, therefore, if the Arhat, Bodhisattvas, Buddhas, if they have to face the death once they are born in such body, absolutely, and no exceptions. Absolutely, and I have to face the death. Absolutely, I cannot escape the death. Absolutely, I will have to experience that. So if we look in that, then it's, again, all spiritual path, all the founder of spiritual path, the Buddha himself, Jesus himself, Muhammad himself, all are different spiritual path, the founder of each of spiritual path, the most enlightened beings in that spiritual path, no matter how many saints and bodhisattvas, all of them are just historic now. All of them are just historic now. Why? Because they are no more in this body, the body they were born with, because they all have to face the death. And so therefore, monks, just as the pots made by the potters, clay potters, in the old time is mostly made from the clays, but of course it could be made from different things, whether on fire or fire, of course, are destroyed, whether it's fire or whether it's on fire. It's a matter of time before they decay, they get destroyed, Conclude in destructions. At the end, it comes to end of that. It could last few decades, few centuries, or little more, but at the end, it cannot sustain forever. It cannot sustain forever. It will come to the end, destructions and decaying of that. So that giving example, similarly, it is exactly so like that. Monks, for all beings, all living beings, all sentient beings, all spirits, who have all living beings or spirits who have consciousness or the mind, and all that draw breath, and because of that consciousness, they are able to breathe in and out, or who are able to draw breath. Life indeed conclude the dead, Everyone, every of those conclude with the death, as it limit in death, cannot go forever, it come to an end. For there is nothing that is born that will not die. You cannot point anything that is being born and not die. They all come to an end. And so that being the case, again, at the end, when we do this kind of meditations, we go through each of them, most rich, most wealthy persons, most powerful persons, most smart persons, most enlightened persons, all different, and they all have faced the death because they are born in such body, and they all, therefore, with each of that, I'm no exception from that. I also have to face. I also cannot escape from that. I will have to experience that. So again, always bringing back to yourself, and we're having that awareness or wisdom all the time. There's no way I can escape this. There's no way I can run away from it. There's no way that I will not experience that. And so with that understanding, and then having that awareness, wisdom all the time, that one day I will experience that. And if you see, a lot of people in the world, people who dedicated their life, everything's, even today, I was just listening to one documentary and kind of interview with one lady in Nepal who have started orphanage and hers. She's happy to, because when she died, there's nothing she could take any of those things. So she gave everything for the orphanage. She dedicated her life, all her wealth, everything. She sold her whatever, from whatever her job, money. She bought a land. She sold all this land to establish this orphanage and taking care of more than 300 orphanage, and dedicated her life. And again, when she asked, she says, when I die, I cannot take any of these things. I will die soon, and I cannot take any of this wealth. So it's best for me to use something to be benefit to others, to help to others. That is what inspire you. Inspire you when you know you are dying, and when you die, what you can take, what you cannot take. And that inspired her to be able to use her resource to be benefit to others, help to others. So anyway, so that was the story that, and of course, if you listen to the interview, story of a lot of people who completely dedicate their life and who gave everything for social activities and to benefit a lot of them. That's how they are able to do, because of that awareness, because of that understanding. It does really change your perceptions, and through changing your perceptions, your actions is help change your actions and help you to be more help and benefit than you would be if you don't have that perception and if you don't have that wisdom and awareness. So yeah, so with that, I think I will conclude here today, and next week will be the last class for this, because we have only a few verses now, and then after that, I think we'll see. I think you probably I did write to Eloise, and maybe John has wanted, and we discussed a little bit, maybe something to discuss about the different mantras, the benefit of the mantras, when to use those different mantras at different time, what is the meaning of those different mantras, because people do use that, but sometimes what symbolize and all related with that. Maybe we could have, I don't know, 2-3 sessions on that, and so maybe. But anyway, I think maybe once we confirm, then the email will be sent.